What up? What up? What's up? It is Hot Mic Friday. What up, everybody? Let me get in here so y'all can see my face. Hi. What up, everybody? Guess what? It's Hot Mic Friday. Big shout out to everybody out there in the Shark Tank. Big shout out to all my people out there on the back street. Y'all know what time it is. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Let me get my shout outs out the way right quick. Big shout out to Deep South Country in the house. I see you, fam. My man Skid Bell in the house. What up, fam? 614 Tree representing. What up, fam? Big shout out to my man representing the D, Chico Nicholas in the house. What up, fam? Big shout out to my brother out there, my main man, Eli Monster. What up, fam? Yo, what up, my man, Big Jink in the house. What up, fam? Let me see. Big shout out to Styles. Kennels in the house. What up, fam? Yo, my man, Sir Swampy. What up, fam? Yo, big shout out to my main man, the insane honey badger in the house. What up, fam? Hey, man, I appreciate everybody for showing up, showing out. As usual, it's on a Friday. Things just get like it is. Guess what? I'm here. You know, tonight's going to be one of them kind of conversations. It's almost like a funny conversation because, you know, at least for me, because I be thinking about like Back to the Future type shit. You know, y'all remember how the movie goes. Instead of them going back to the past, they go into the future. Then they have to come back to the past to do all that kind of crazy shit. But this is kind of the way I be looking at the dog game. You know what I mean? Because damn, man, I be thinking if we had a chance to go to the future just to have a good look and see what things would just be like. You know, we can speculate. I mean, is it going to be a time where we don't have to carry the cell phone around no more? You can just do something to your hand and all of a sudden, you know, you can see everything, you know, right there on your back of your hand or right there in your face with your special glasses on. You can see all that kind of stuff. You know, we see all kinds of things to give us an idea. But even when I was growing up, you know, watching Star Trek and shit, you know what I mean? And you know, when Kirk used to hit him with the Scotty beam me up, you know, he had the little flip phone thing, like, doo-doo. And that's how they did their little talking thing. Or they little tap the little patch thing. See, they was patting their chest back then. But see, now all we doing, we tapping the ear because, you know, for some of my Bluetooth shit, phone ring, all I gotta do is just tap it and I'm talking type shit. See, living and then seeing and relating the things that I seen way back then and how technology and things have come to pass. Like growing up when I was in high school, it's a group, very famous group as a kid, and they're my family members. I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with. Let me see. Oh my gosh, James Ingram, Grammy Award winner James Ingram. He's also in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, family member. Now, in my age group, James was like in my older sisters and them. But then Philip, he was like him and one of my older sisters. I think Philip and them would have been like 2 years older than us. Philip Ingram is he was in a group. The group was actually when we were in high school, we used to play the bongos and do percussion and dance. And we was too young to travel with them. Now they was raw soul at the time. This same group ended up becoming the group we know as Switch. So for me, be thinking, all right, back then we was in bands. You know, we had the congos, we had the drummer, the bass player, guitar player, keyboard player. You know, had the big sound system with the board and everything was plugged into the board type of shit. You know, these were the kind of shows that we was putting together. And this is what the studio looked like. Now this is what me being in like I think our 9th, 10th, 11th grade year, we was traveling. But school became important because we was doing this shit around Ohio. But when the big break came, you know, it was traveling time. My parents, they wasn't on that, you know. We gonna finish school and they really didn't care what we did after school. Well, they went on and ended up getting a record deal and then the rest is history. Because as we all know, for those who don't know, Switch is won a couple, I think maybe 2 Grammys. They still travel to this day. But real popular group. Barge, you know. Eddie and the Barges. Yeah, they were part of that group. They actually hooked up right after, you know, Raw Soul and the Barge and them ended up hooking up. You know, that was right after when they left. I think they signed a deal with, I believe so, it was Motown. But seeing how we used to do things then and then still living in that same thing. Now I'm grown now. Now I'm putting together concerts. Now I'm working in this, you know, create my own studio. And I came in. The funny thing is, I came in and I had the big booth, big board. Everything was like okay, but didn't have nowhere to deal with this band situation. You know, because the booth wasn't but so big, and we only had the booth to put in just people who could rap and just sing. You know, but I had enough area that out where we would be sitting that we could do, you know, drums and bass and you know just break every down in things in sections. But I didn't have to do that because then by that time we had my first 2 pieces was keyboards. I had a sampler and I had a sequencer. Now, with those, we were still putting disc in them, but we had control over the sounds. You know, if I wanted to have a guitar or something going on, it was right there in the keyboard. If I wanted to loop, you know, like there's a certain part of a track or something, what we do, we cut it and then we loop it. So things had even changed in that kind of aspect for me because at this point I'm taking from one transition to something I was used to seeing to a whole new transition, and I didn't have to have the big band thing around. And then we had the didn't need the drummer because we had the 808, and then a couple years later we wound up with the 909, the MP4s. So you music people, y'all know what I'm talking about. Back then we had racks, you know. We didn't, you know, we could have the MP4, but then because of my studio, I wanted racks. I had everything made it in to where we had control over right there at the computer type of shit. Very high tech. Change to even now that when I'm looking at now here in my office, I still got keyboards, but guess what? I don't have the 24 track Votex, you know, sitting up there taping the music and stuff. because time has changed again. I can do everything now, even edit videos and all types of shit right there in my computer. And I got I have 3 computers in here. Each one of them got different jobs. But the thing is, look what technology has done in my 64 years of living. Being hands-on watching this shit. Well, guess what? I relate that back to the same situation with the dogs. You know what I'm saying? Because you think about when we first got in, a bulldog, it was just a bulldog. But then again, you start reading up on them because, you get, like the music I was involved in. I needed to know as much as I could know. I wanted to understand videos and things that, you see, to do this shit, you have to be, inclined to sit down. And for something you don't know, you got to put in the work to be able to get it to work. So I take my hat off to all my boys out there to put these channels together and take the time to do the things that they do, because that's something I don't do here. It's hard for me to get in here and do these things now, because it's almost like learning something again. And, and if I want to pick up my game, I got to do a little bit more study. Not the fact that the stuff's not here to where it can't be able to be done, but I know what it takes to get that job done. For me to be just here on Tuesdays and Fridays, and all I have to do right now is come in and keep doing the simple shit, just click. Still ain't knocked out all the edges and shit, because I know I got to change up the computer. Because programs are always updating and things are changing. And this old shit just ain't going to be able to keep up. It's not something I was looking forward to be doing, because it could keep up. I got damn near the computer over there. I swear to God, it's got to be over 20 years old and she's still running. Programs that we can't even download it now, that we pay for now, I can go to that same computer, get the same work done, and it's already been paid for. See, they took that away from us because now they put the software in the cloud. And now they're making more money, probably 20 times more money to use something that no more than maybe 10, 15 years ago, we buy it one time and we had access to everything that y'all actually literally pay for now. I say that because not everybody understands what I'm talking about. But if you are into computers and dealing with programs, and everybody at some point has to deal with these damn things, because everybody now we're dealing with AI, something totally different than anything else I've ever used, because that goes to show you just how times have changed. But having this stuff, to even be able to learn it, is a task. So I take my hat off to people who sit down and do these things. And remember, the more you do it, the better you're going to get. So that takes me back to the dogs, because sometimes I'll be wondering, okay, I'm still living in the now, so and I still deal with the American Pit Bull Terrier dog community. Just the dogs anyway, because we deal with Malamars too. But the training part of it is always going to keep us dealing with dog people. And thinking about when we first got in, and then I'm looking at the now, there's nothing that really has changed much. Unlike the technical side of the game, and then based on our experience and our learning process of the things that we were able to experience and learn over the years, can't say, we stepped our game up. But that goes to show you where we would had to step up. There were already people in place. That's why we were able to see the things we were able to see and learn the things we were able to learn because these things were already in place. They was already doing dogs. They was already had referees. They already had rules. You had every and anybody that knew exactly what to do, and they utilized the same material that was out there. Yeah, you had your great breeders, you had your great dogs, you had your great conditioners, you had your great all arounds, then you had your great dogs. And see, over the years, in my many years, I can tell y'all that part of the game never changed. The dogs were always going to be out there. Somebody was always going to be able to, up the standards. Because in every situation throughout the years, there was always, them hot, it's almost like popularity. There was always something there that was popular, something that was working, and everybody wanted to jump on it. You know, just like good weed. When somebody got some good weed, it's not like everybody else's weed. This weed here, it's good shit. Everybody's gonna be trying to go to get the good weed. You know, that's just like the norm. Everybody's gonna always gravitate to what's good. Now, true enough, over the years, there's been many good dogs, many great breedings, and like I said, we still talk about a lot of these dogs all the way up until today. You know, remember, go way, way back. Think, look at all the dogs that were still living. Mighty B was still living when I was back then. Um, the Thor, Champion Thor was still living. Stevenson's Big Ben was still. So I think about all the old dogs. The Queen. Them was old dogs, but guess what? They weren't old as far as in my time. So by the time I'm looking at that kind of stuff and looking at everything in between, the dogs really never changed. Even the faces with the people, because being in the game, you get a chance to meet so many people. And in this game, everybody has their way of doing things. You could almost tell what the greats had in common when somebody had great dogs in the yard, and then a guy over here that he got great dogs in the yard, and then you try to find out what they have in common. They dealing with two different bloodlines, but got great dogs. What do they really have in common? And the dog, the man himself, the person with the dogs. And care how far we go back, that situation will always apply. So it's not like we upgrading anything. There's certain things that have to be in place in order to accomplish the things. Years and years of history has shown us that that's what makes the future grow. That's where you start looking. For me, I got a chance to see, we're not dealing with one or two great dogs. We're dealing with a lot of great dogs now. At that moment, there's a lot of great dogs. What's the next stage? Next stage is being able to produce and make that line carry on and be something that everybody's going to always want to have. Okay, that part never really changed. You had a whole lot of people, that was measuring, that point and trying to find their way to be in that area. I mean, this game was a competitive, as far as I've been around it, it had always been competitive. But over the years and growing up, I'm trying to make that big change, like how we go, like going from the car phone in the car in a big block to holding a piece like this. in my lifetime, watching it happen. I never got a chance to see the dog game make that big of a drastic change. Um, I guess going back 20 years, you're looking at, all right, yeah, there was a lot of matching going on. Look at some of the journals and look at the American Game Dog Times and some of the other people who used to report. That was big back then. That has changed, but we know why that has changed. It's understanding why that has changed because, you know, popularity causes things to change. You know, I always said that the more popular something gets, the more trouble it brings. Like even like as an artist or even in this dog game, the more popular you get, the more headaches and problems that you're gonna have. Because I don't know if it's just a part of this, is that just a part of life? Because it seems like it happens in every part of life. And then again, we're getting used to that saying, if they ain't hating on you, then that means you ain't doing something right. Which makes sense because as soon as you do it, you're just doing something right, they're gonna be hating on you. So I guess that's just part of life in general because that's nothing new to the game. That's always been around. So the men and the women and the faces might change, but we still talk about the same dogs. Um, 20 years for me, when they were doing a whole lot of matching dogs, I mean, that underground activity been going on for many, 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 many years, and that part didn't really change. I mean, I think the men and everybody kind of knew throughout at least my years as far as the 90s. Remember, we started in the early 80s and then learned our way through the 80s, and by the time we hit the 90s, we up and ready to, to get in, and looking at the community at the time, I had fun. Everyone had fun. And we all knew the risk. And it's the 90s now. Everybody knew the risk. Everybody act like they understood the risk that was involved. And when I think back on that now, and some of the things and we used to do to have to do these type of things, you know, yeah, we might have been crazy because you think about it now, and I laugh about it because that's like being a young street hood. I'm in the streets and growing up watching everybody else doing something, you know what I mean? And then you think about all the risks you used to take and all the craziness you used to go with doing what you was doing, you know. But age changes a lot of these things. And age actually changed a lot of the people that I seen lose whole yards, been caught in the race 3 or 4 times, you know what I'm saying? You know, the crucial, you know, things that come along, somebody tell on them and all kind of that, that part didn't change. That's nothing new. Even then it was part of the game. But people were more for me, I think for that period of which as much it was going on, um, accountability was the biggest thing. Everybody had to be accountable for, and be responsible for their show. We took very um, much pride in when the shows that we threw. You know, make sure everybody had a nice time. Place was secure. and everybody have fun. You know, everybody enjoyed their time just being around each other. Those was like going to house parties at the time. We just called them cookouts. That was a lot of that. Beautiful, much love for the game because there's not a place I went that I can truly say that I did not get treated, you know, with some of the best hospitality from people that I was just meeting. So I know that has to be a part of the game. So I never wanted to change that part. Actually, it showed me this is how the game's supposed to be played if you're doing it right. So yeah, I could get with that. But that part really, I wasn't around to see what that looks like when you got into the late 2010, moving forward. I could see things really taking its toll, I would say back in 2008. Because at that point, when you were rating, the journal, and just thinking ain't really the journal part that was the killer part. It was the fact that Jack got caught up again. You know, and then here, he already had that bad name on the journal, and then just raiding that part again with the new guy getting caught up and accused of dog fighting. See, that bad press. Now you got to remember now, why are we getting bad press all of a sudden? We already discussed that. We still talk about certain points and times that some of you guys might not even been born yet. In the late 80s and early 90s. But things, as far as life itself was just different. Just like everything that we deal with now is different. But one thing for that I can truly tell y'all, the dogs part, the main ingredients of this community is always going to be the dogs. And the man with the dogs. Because the dogs need our help to represent them. So you ask yourself, okay, what would these dogs look like in the next 20 years? They always was open to anything that was changed. Because again, being young at one point, I know what it was to think, to tell you, when I was young, in my younger years, I had to have the biggest cojones you can imagine to do some of the things that I was doing and taking some of the chances that I was taking. For real, man. When you're young, I don't know if it's just that little something in your mind or you just don't be thinking or whatever. I mean, things just, you just out there just doing it. Not saying no regards and, or you're being stupid because actually, you know, I think because I was young and understood the consequences to my actions, that made me more attentive to whatever I was trying to do. Okay, that's all about the person. Didn't stop the activity at all. You know what I'm saying? Young, you could do that type of shit. Even when you got older, you didn't do as much as you did when you was young because you didn't have to anymore. See, things just got bigger and better. That's the way the dog game worked. You might have started out cleaning up shit or not having nothing, but if you stuck with it, like everything else, you got a little older and you guess what? So did everything else around you. It's just easy to look back on your life and say and talk about these things. The hard part is when you have gotten that thing called experience under your belt along with age, you know a lot more shit. So you can speak on things. One thing can't nobody out here do is actually come in here and tell me what's going to actually happen tomorrow before tomorrow get here. But then sometimes we can sit back and look at certain things and automatically know, well, damn. Well, I can speculate that if you keep doing that kind of dumb shit right there, you're gonna find yourself in trouble. I can't tell you when, but I can tell you what. You keep doing what you're doing, you're gonna get hit. Things are gonna go wrong. You keep doing what you're doing, you're gonna be in trouble. What makes you say that to people when you say that? Because there's something that you see that they're doing wrong. That's all. That's all. You're standing out on the block, and we got the jump team running around. You don't want to be out there, man. They change shifts to 6. They be at home with their families, but you out here. I'm telling you, man, you don't want to do that. Because he keeps standing his ass on that block during that time period. Guess what? We're going to be hearing about it. When you do hear about him, well, I try to tell him. Trying to move in on somebody's spot and just hard-headed. Wasn't nobody out there because it was a reason why ain't nobody out there. Now, you want to get on out there and go ahead. I'm just telling you, asking for problems. Yeah, you can foresee that type of shit based off of what somebody do that that's stupid. Especially when somebody tell you. But then when it comes to these dogs, same process, same thing. Underground gonna always be the underground, and hey, I don't know what to say. I can't sit here and just act like it's gonna all of a sudden just disappear. Been around too long. So I'm gonna just take that and just leave that in place because it should be where for me, it has always been. It's always been a community situation. And I never ever seen one bit of advertisement and none of the reporting things about a show going to be somewhere. Never had to worry about reading it. Always, you got some of the feedback after the fact, but never really before the fact. It's like everything else. Community gonna always have something to say and talk, but you got to be special, really special, to actually be standing there to see it. And back then, that you had to really be special to be there to see things like that. Because everybody was really holding everybody really accountable for who was there. So that part of the game, yeah, I could see why it changed. Yeah, over the years, moving into the future, looking at it, because I'm still here, always keeping my head, close to see, what's the new thing, what's the new happenings going on, what's the new bloodline out here. Because you kind of want to see how much lasted over the years. You know what you're seeing. You got a chance to see how things have changed over the years, which not really much has changed over the years. I mean, I hear we used to talk about the Corrado dogs. That to me that was short lived. For real. That's only short lived. Who knows what it's going to look like 5 to 10 years from now? But it's not the same that when it was hot and it's like the one hit wonders. It's not as hot. Can you say that after 5, 6 years? Yeah. I mean, it crept up a buzz, but the stand power ain't there. It's not there. Now, the community has control over all of that. They have always had the control all over that. Here, I'm tell you what, I got a little thing right here. This is a short reminder because it was something that my man Victor Arquette had said back in the day. Right here. Now, this is something out of Victor's interview over in Fat Bill's American Game Dog Times book of interviews. Victor said, for me, lucky is capacity plus experience plus tenacity plus opportunity equals lucky. We worked very hard during years and years with a lot of time and money involved in dogs, with many bad experiences. But we were enough game to come back and still be scratching until we get it. So we paid the price for the successful, and when I said these great dogs come into my hands at the right moment, it's because at that moment I was ready to handle this quality of dogs. Maybe if they come to me 5 years earlier, nothing happened. We'll never know. But I'm trying to explain. At that moment when I bought these dogs, I was ready with enough experience about pit bulls and with a firm determination to make something great and big on my pit bull steps in my life. I was completely decided to put all the energy, time, and money to build something special that will put the name of my dogs and our kennel forever in the history of the pit bull world. If I have to say about any secrets about the success, priority, I have to say great dogs like there are, and then the firm decision from us to make that dream come true. ROM litter, now we are working on the next step. That is, put our dogs everywhere and breed them with the proper standards and try to produce great dogs like are already in the market, like Grand Champion Luke Kane and Champion the Brat. We will still try to push these particular bloodlines of dogs until we build a strain of bulldogs with Grand Champion Mayday as a main stud dog. We still see in the near future. We will see in the near future. I promise I will do my best in honor of the truth. I can't finish this particular question without first mentioning the friends who gave to me my different keys. I don't want to read the rest, but I just wanted to get into there was a question. Grand Champion Mayday, Champion Choice, Champion Dragon Lady were great dogs. But is there any secret about the success of this litter? So that's for the ones who you wanted to speak on the question. My thing about that is, at the time that he did this interview, the only dogs he could talk about was actually the first two major dogs that was really out there making some noise, which was Luke Kane and the Brat. Now, at that moment, but look at his conversation, the things that he was saying based on his experience. Remember, the capacity, experience, tenacity, opportunity equals lucky. See, that's somebody, looking what they wanted out of the game and trying to tell you how he was going to try to obtain it. Now, just because people say things like that does not necessarily mean it happens. I use this because I was around when this happened. I was, I was around all the undertakings of put them dogs out there in the right people's hands and people doing this and people ain't reporting, you know, and then 3 and 4 watching Mayday do what he doing, and but then all the underlines of this man trying to create a dream. You know what I mean? But see, this right here is an example of you read this, but guess what? We know what that future turned out to be. Everything that he was saying, he actually did. I mean, we still talk about Mayday. God damn, man, I'm telling you. And we read the Mayday in what, 1994 or 5? You know what I'm saying? And he's talking about just Luke Kane and the Brat. Look at all the other shit that came after that and everything that he was actually trying to do, he actually was able to do. Because he did. He put the dogs in, I'm telling you, he put them in the right hands. That's all I'm going to say. And he held everybody accountable to do and to make sure that the right things were done with what he was trying to do. Because he knew what he had to do to make sure it happened. You know what I'm saying? Paperwork. It was just so much, a lot of things that was going on that if you stop and look at everything that he did moving forward, he accomplished that task. But this is what I want y'all to sound like in y'all moments of the now, regardless of what you do moving forward. This part of this game, everybody should be sounding the same exact way, regardless of what you're doing and how you're doing it. That's why I don't hate on nobody. Because y'all hear us say this many, many times about the people that mentor us and what we got out of it. You will damn near hear us sound just like this. And back then, when you probably would, if we had did an interview in our early times, we probably would have sounded just like this. Because we were trying to get and do what they were already doing. So when I stop and look at what the future looks like, moving forward, I'm going to always go back to stuff like this. What Victor was saying. The things that we were saying. Some of the things that some of the other older guys come on and they tell you their experience. And you could almost tell they're all saying the same thing in a different type of way. And at the time, none of us knew, but we all was here in this one moment where it all had to come together. Capacity, experience, tenacity, opportunity equals lucky. Now imagine that. The capacity means the amount of work you're putting in. So if you're putting in a lot of work, you definitely finna get a lot of experience. And if you're it takes the right tenacity to actually take advantage of the capacity, with the experiences fitting to come with it. So we know all these things work hand in hand. And then you add an opportunity to actually go do the shit, breed Mo. I don't care what nobody say. If Mo wanted to breed every champion, a grand champion he wanted to, then so be it. If the opportunity come, only way you're gonna find out is just get out there and do it. Yeah, they all don't put juice nothing twin in on. Well, guess what? Everybody ain't me. You know, that's gonna always be his attitude about it because of the opportunity. The opportunity based on his capacity, experience, and his tenacity to go get it. If you want to call that lucky, then so be it. Because we too happen to be some lucky ass people in this game. Lucky. And we constantly remind you that we're nothing compared to them. You know, Victor and Mau Mau and Eminem and Stone City and Hardcore and I mean Loctite and the names is I can go on and on, but y'all have to understand where I'm coming from. This right here is my way of trying to explain that one point that regardless of what happens in the future, there's certain things that ain't never gonna change. This part right here. In order for these dogs to be anything as far as whatever the future is gonna look like, it's always gonna be in the hands of the person with the capacity and the experience and the tenacity and the opportunity to be lucky enough to be able to be in that position to have that conversation. And I think we've filled the gap for many years, from the early 1800s up into 2025. Those gaps have been filled somehow, some way, by somebody. So is it lucky? Then so be it. But understand, regardless of how bad things might get out here, this part of the American Pit Bull Terrier will never change. As long as you got people out there like this. The purpose might change, but even that, only time gonna tell. And we don't know how many years that's gonna take. But you gotta remember, how long did it take this man to realize that he was gonna have a famous dog? He only had only two out there was making any noise at the time was just Grand Champion Luke Kane and Brad. Only ones making noise. But how long did it take Victor Arquette to achieve and realize everything he said when he did this interview came to pass? Was it 5 years? 10 years? It took him 3 years, y'all. 3. 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Right after the Brett situation, everything else started to where I remember, Mo always said Victor couldn't bear, couldn't really understand what he was saying, but especially when he get upset. But he was cool dude. But just to see how all that, the turn even all that took. I can just felt like it only took that man 3 years. Now, if that's lucky, okay. But he ain't the first to do it. That's what I'm saying. He's not the first to do it. They don't all come like the greats, like Chinaman and Jeep and Buck and Mayday and Yellow. They come far in between when they come like that, fellas. But we don't forget about the BB Reds, the Bailey's Bengals, Billy Boy Bob's. I mean, that right there, when you can look back on history and see what it did, and then you take a conversation like this dog, maybe not knowing what it's going to look like or what it's going to do, regardless of what people say. I'm always be a fan of. It was so many of these damn Mayday dogs out there that if you felt like you had anything, you tell me which one of them you went into. You just remind me, just remind me. Now I know fifth, maybe I'm gonna say 12 off the top of my head. And for me, even that can get hard. But then I'll go to more. I know we got at least 12 that was rolling around basically all at the same time. So you got to add them numbers up, the champions and the grand champions, and how many campaigns that would have had to be, and you never fell in that. You wasn't on the other side on none of them. None of them. You talking some shit? See, I'd be having problems with that because there was so many of them out there at that time that it wasn't hard to get on. If you wanted one, remember I've seen a whole bunch of them go. I've seen what kind of people done stood across from them. You know, them dead serious. You know, them ones that I'm finna come get some of that. You know what I mean? And when they fall short like that, at least somebody actually was climbing over that wall. For all the ones who ain't never had that opportunity, see that takes me back to you're lacking one of them key things of being lucky because you missed the opportunity. See, when you miss the opportunity, then you're left to doing nothing but talk. But if you had the opportunity, then all you could say, at least I got in there with them. I can tell you how it went down because it beat me. See, when you get enough of them out there, it speaks for itself. You see, that's the part of history that took care of all that other bullshit. You know the other bullshit. They're talking about shit. You got a whole bunch of dogs, but you never did that one, and then that brings us back to you. Who's doing the talking? See, this country was way, way, way too big for everybody to know everybody. But that was the fun thing about it, that the community was big enough that if you was dead serious and had the capacity and experience, the tenacity and the opportunity to want to try to be lucky, you wasn't in the boat by yourself. Because there was a whole lot of people out there was trying to make it happen, Captain. And those are the things that haven't changed, and those are the things that will not change. That you just need a lot more people to have it moving forward, to get a better understanding of what the future really gonna look like with these dogs. Because those are the major factors that have not changed over all these years, gentlemen. Same things for everybody back there. We was all there at one point in time. So when you stop and look and try to take a look at the future, you're trying to cover all them things right there. Who's got the capacity with the experience, tenacity, and can make the opportunity. See, that's when I be talking about people getting together and making things happen. You know, in our time, we could make things happen. That's not going to change. In the future, you got to be able to look at it just a little bit different. Just because we don't know what that's going to look like. What direction is that going to go? I already told you how I feel about my night vision. And I still believe the best of the American game dog is always going to come out of the basement and is legal as it has always been. they've always found the will and the way. So I'm gonna leave that point there because even when I look back at that part of my life, that's that part that I be like, man, them some good dogs. Was I got a chance to see a lot, and it's just a part of my life that you know was a great experience. So I can understand why Tudor and Maurice and Pat and True Colors and Kenny, them diehards, man. The Floyds, them diehards, the Masons, the Mamas. Look at all the old men who have passed. You know, we know a lot of them. The Gassins, Whitley. What's the other old man we was talking about, Mo? That I thought that he had buried his dogs before. Oh yeah, old West Penn. Great story behind. He had some good damn dogs too. But just think about them old men. They died, man, bulldogging it. That right there. I'm just telling y'all, man. There's certain things that's not gonna change. I think it's always. I'm closer to watching the things on Facebook and then watching the videos and watching people's comments and seeing how people react and try to grade my way of what the future looks like just based off of the now, what the now looks like with all the shit that's going on and moving forward. What's the best way to get beyond, the old and let's see what the new looks like. Those are the things I hear and I try to watch and see what it's going to look like. You know, who's going to be where the major, what's going to be the major breakthrough? Who's going to have that victor moment? You know, that's that thing I look at. I call it, it's a victor moment because that was his story. It's a going hard moment when going hard telling their story. That's the whole point. When you have a story, at least you're gonna have something to stand on. And that's what's the importance of the part that when you start looking and saying how many more of them out there we got left. Because, this game been built on just how serious and the love of the game as far as the dogs are concerned. That's why it's so important to understand, how much is the love of the dog? What it's going to look like 20 years from now. Because we can tell you right now, I can tell you what Mayday looks like 20 years later. Because I still hear Mayday shit. Right along I hear Jeep, Red Boy, and some other things, but then, hey, like I said, 20 years from where I dropped off, and 20 more years, at what point did y'all hear us stop saying Thibault? But pretty much everything comes down off of Thibault at some point, right? Or when we start giving up what was the next big name? The Red Boy. No, we still ain't gave up the Red Boy. We still ain't gave up the old family Red Nose situation. For us, our breedings was not meant to be different. Our breedings is something that we always wanted to have. Was saying, that's the going hard strain. It's not like boars or anything. It's more like a brand thing. Because behind our dogs, we just branded ourselves. There's just certain type of dogs that we gonna have. We ain't looking at it be all nighters, but we can go all night if we have to. But what they known for? They known for back end killers. They come in with some back end killing shit. know that some people be like, oh, well, yeah, that's the whole purpose of why you did it, because that gave a whole lot of people the opportunity to stand on that other end, knowing you're going into some back end, hard biting, killing shit. That's all that's what that goes along with the dog and that goes along with the person, because everybody wants to know, what Ronnie Boyles was doing, what James Garrett Crenshaw was doing, what Mama bringing, what the A team bringing. Everybody had an opportunity. When you start knowing them kennels, you kind of got an idea. You're going to have your hands full. And that was where the competition came from. You just wanted to make sure you did your part. Because now you got a whole bunch of capacity, experience, tenacity, and opportunity to find out who's going to be lucky on that night, on that day. Now, that's what history states. Right? I wonder what the future's going to say. Then ain't nothing really changed over all these years except for the names and the dogs and the people with them. Something to think about, right? Turn this over to my man Mo. It's on you, bro. I'm coming in my philosophy shit because, I be listening to shit. And I just be wondering, I really do wonder what is going to happen 20 years from now. You know what I'm saying? Back. Again. What up, everybody? Thanks for coming out. That was a pretty good conversation. Get what they're saying, money. Nobody got anything to say? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My man, big shout out to my man Union Kennels. He said, I always say that, twin. It was not the dog, it was the kennel. Well, it was definitely the kennel. Victor put a lot of dogs out there. Just think, all those champions, and wasn't one of them coming off his yard. He already did his job with Dragon Lady and Choice and Mayday. I know I can name a couple of them. There was a lot of them. At a short period, too. So I look at him like I be watching, like I seen Hardcore, Stone City, a lot of great kennels out there. And I can guarantee you, every one of them got a story like that. I'm pretty sure they wasn't trying to be, putting it out there like they trying to be great. Victor had his mind on something, and one of his things was he wanted to be something special. He'd been around. Before he became Southern Kennels, he was Latin Boy Kennels, I'm sure. Right? Yeah. And he did a come up. He definitely made a come up. I just, like I said, I bumped into, met in them on a breed and had the opportunity to run into him. Did it change a lot for me? Yep. I guess I was lucky. Definitely was lucky. Because I was there in the right place at the right time and got a chance to see it, liked it, wanted to breed it, got me a breed. Lucky enough to turn around and
Give me a breed with the dog and come up with Brat and Little Mayday. You know, in the right place at the right time. Yeah. What did we do with it? We ran with it. So I think that I saw it in Earl Tudor. I seen it in Floyd Boudreaux. You know what I'm saying? I can just go right on down the line. We've been talking about this. You know, if we've been watching the shows, we notice we've been talking about the generational on grabbing a great dog and making another great dog from that great dog, and just these kennels blew up. Ronnie Boyles and the Boyles dogs. Look at him. You know what I'm saying?
You know, I made a crack about the Corona dogs, right? I said, well, that was a one-hit wonder, like, to me. You know, because we still, when we come out of fire, but all of a sudden, you know.
It trickled down.
Trickled down, right. So.
You know. Well, I think the Mayday stuff trickled down compared to the way Victor did it. I don't see no other dogs in the line of Mayday that did what Victor did with Mayday. I know I can name at least 13, 14 champions. Add a little Mayday, 15. Right off of me. And then none of them make their champion or grand champion at Southern Kennels. So one thing he got right, he said he was going to get his dogs, he was going to put them all over the place. And he did that. You know, I said there was a lot of them. I can see, I think I'm going to sit out there and give everybody a chance to play with this today. Let's tell me y'all can come up with. Y'all down in the chat room. Yeah, Shark Tank. Tell me y'all can come up with. Start naming them off. Put them down in the chat. As Mike, y'all putting them down. You know, Micah, shout them out. Mm-hmm. All his champions. Maydays.
Yeah,
I am telling them. Okay, I mean, you're asking me, but I'm pretty sure they catching it. I said, all his champions. How many can y'all come up with? To me, it just shows, like, did you notice something, though, when we be going down through the buck stuff, when we was talking about Pat Patrick and, you know, and then Bolio, and then Pat Patrick, and then all the dogs that start falling off into greatness off that line. We did the same thing with Floyd, Maurice Carver, you know, Ronnie Boyles, Stone City, Hardcore, Bellon Club. It's just a lot of them. A lot of them. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's like a part of a machine. The dog game is like a part of a machine. If you get all the right parts, you put all those parts in the right place, and it always seems to lead back to somebody who's already began building it. See, to me, all these great bloodlines came down off of somebody who was already building it. You know, I haven't got the Fletcher Chavis and Katie Marlowe and the Red Boy Dolls and their rise. I haven't got around to that one. But when we talk about some of these major dogs, we still talking about major dogs that come from great dogs. Because it just didn't start with Mayday. Mayday is just a product of another dog as yellow. His daddy was yellow. Daddy was already doing what Mayday was doing, getting ready to do for damn sure. He produced Mayday. And you take that story like Mike was putting it down, tenacity, and you look at Maurice Carver's story, then you look at Earl Tudor's story and Danny Burton's story and Don Mayfield's story. And you just listen to them. They all put together something that was already started. Ricker Davis, they all got something. But what they got was already something started. Atlas Brewer was snooty. Zebo, Kingfish. All these dogs was in the hands, and in these people's hands, they was already dealing with something that was already started. Look at their pedigrees. You always hear me talking about these formulas, but in each one of these stories, we're pointing out formulas. Every one of them.
Okay, my boy. I made big shout out to my man K-Monger in the house. K-Monger, he's spinning all the lists. So let me hit the list for you.
Yeah.
Okay. He's got Luke Kane, Barracuda, the Brat, Code, Mario, 600, Mean Luigi, May May, Sally, Chanel, Happy, Cock Diesel, Twisted, and Graveyard.
Monster.
Come on.
That was how many?
Oh, but he didn't even say. He got Noriega. There's Noriega there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't hear Brat's name either.
Who's the third one?
The third
He
one?
said Luke Kane, Barracuda, the Brat,
Oh, okay.
Cody, Mario. Okay.
That's how many?
1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It was 14.
You got Little Mayday.
That's 15.
Add Hannah.
Yeah. I'll see her, man.
Monster.
I'll see him, man.
That was 16, 17, 18. Let me see. So who would he miss? I know some of y'all heard me. Who did he miss?
He missed Monster. I mean, the ones, if they heard you or not. I don't know if you were trying to tell them or not.
I kind of put it in there. There was another one in there he missed. Where Belle at? You know what I'm talking about?
Who?
Belle.
Let's see no better.
Anna.
Let's see no
Annabelle. Talking about that. She wasn't on there. So you see, Miss Annabelle, you missed Monster. Little Mayday.
You got Hunch.
Yep.
Chico Nicholas came in with Hunch. Came back with Monster.
So out of that list, now we got 5 more added. Anybody say Annabelle yet?
Nope.
So what we got so far? We had the 5. Who was the 5? Hunch, Monster, Little Mayday. Which one did I miss, Mike? I'm missing 2 of them.
You're missing Annabelle.
Annabelle. And Hannah.
Annabelle.
Hmm.
Yeah, because they're not on here.
Yeah, okay. So we got 5 added to his 14, 15? See, we way up there around 16, 17, 18, 19. All winning dogs off of Mayday. That's a lot of dogs. I mean, a lot of dogs not one of them was campaigned by Southern Kennels. Not one of them. It was all sired by Mayday. But did not one of those dogs made champion out of Southern Kennels. Not one. So he did exactly what he said he was going to do. Exactly what he said he was going to do, he did. And to me, he falls right up in there in that line of them great dog, man, that I was talking about. Floyd Boudreaux, Earl Tudor, Reese Carver. You know what I'm saying? Fletcher Chavis, Katie Marlowe, David Tant, Tom Gardner. You know, it just, I mean, but you notice something though? If you was to take all these great dogs that we talking about, that we running these names down, I can guarantee you we can chop them up, and they all gonna fall in the same group. It's gonna be a group, and this group has always been there. These group of dogs have always been there. You talk about Boyle's dogs, and Boyle's dogs gonna go all the way back to Bolio. We talk about those Jeep dogs, and Jeep dogs gonna go all the way back to all. I mean, when I say Jeep, we gonna go all the way back to Kobe. You know, Bully's son. You take Bully's son, we can take him all the way back to Reese Carver. And you notice they're all, when we talk about Rascal and Rascal Dogs, they're all going to be in that, there's a category there. They all come from a tree of a line of dogs that was way back there in the beginning, and how it grew through breedings, performance. The big powerful lines in the dog history of the dog game. Anybody was lucky enough to get a plug in, they got a plug in, they part of that list. They on them lists. All those great dogs. The reason why we can talk about them dogs back there is because of all the great dogs up here. That's what makes history. A lot of history amongst all these great dogs and the dog men that had them. You know, I look at it like it's a science, or more or less like Well, no. I just think it's all luck. When I say luck, I'm not talking about the, the opportunity just popped up. I'm talking about the opportunity when you get it, when it's all said and done. That's where the luck comes from. Because you're going to always look back and say, I was just lucky. Like me. I can just say it. I was just lucky. But what did I do with the luck that I got? I worked it. And so that everybody else that can sit there and say that they were lucky enough to be in the position and have the opportunity to put the work in with what they had, and it showed up. What they put into it showed up. There's other good dogs out there. You got to think about Boone. Might not have been a great breeder, but definitely a great person, to have his hand on a dog. Like a lot of these other great dog men out here. Some of them weren't just they weren't breeders. They was just winners in the box. You know what I'm saying? A lot of those dogs that came off of Mayday, a lot of those dudes were just winners in the box. Which is pretty damn good. A lot of those dogs are won off of yellow. A lot of those guys weren't breeders. You know what I mean? But they made yellow famous because they was in the box. Banjo dogs, look at those dogs. McCool wouldn't know what to do with himself these days if he had the opportunity to actually see what those dogs turned out to be. A whole true line. That's, to me, was, it has always infatuated me. For real. Because it does take work, to really make it work. And you got to have people who believe. You think if Mayday was running around throwing a bunch of curves, because they all throw curves. But we heard more about the wind than we heard about the curves. You know what I'm saying? We all got curves in every line out there. There's a curve. Guarantee you can find a couple of them. But it's real notable when you could be working with a line that the winds definitely overwhelm the flaws. What's up, man? You know what I mean? And talking about the future, I always take us on the bus ride, and I'm always going back. I always go back because that's where I want your imagination to go. A lot of you guys is up here in the now. I like taking you guys back with me back here and really getting into the character of being back there. Getting that feeling of what did it feel like? What did it look like? What did it seem like during that time? Just to hang out back there is entertaining to me. Definitely historically. You know what I'm saying? And I hope, while you're back there, you really let your imagination just take off. You know what I'm saying? Because it's nothing that can be changed. It is part of history. But just kind of step into those shoes while you're back here with me. You know, because we wouldn't be talking about none of this if these dogs weren't being matched. Whether they was hard wins, easy wins, whatever wins, you know. It's always an easy win when you beat somebody, you know what I'm saying, that, you know, the same people that you complain about that you don't want to call them nobodies. But some of these people, they might be somebodies. I think everybody that loses, you know what I'm saying? I hear, you know, in the now, the way they are being graded, you know, I pick on dogs like Casino and James Crenshaw and those guys, you know. And I pick on them, but I don't pick on them with dishonor. I pick on them honorably. You know what I'm saying? Because me personally, I mean, I don't take nothing away from Blackjack. I don't take nothing away from his daddy Gator. It's not the dogs. You hear me say the same thing about Macho Buck. You know, I'm not talking about the dogs. Them dogs can't read. Them dogs don't know. So it's never been a disrespect to the dogs. The way I pick, I always pick with their owners. You know what I'm saying? I don't pick on the dogs. Because it's not the dog's fault. Dogs are doing what they're supposed to do regardless of who you put over there. You know? Could, shoulda, woulda. It didn't happen because you didn't bring nothing. So, you know. And so I leave that part alone. When it comes to the dogs, it's not the dogs. Dogs don't know. If they winning, they don't know if they beating a bum. They don't know if they beating a great dog. They don't know none of that. They have no idea. So when I hear people really trying to downsize the dog, I mean, I could really accept you downsizing the owner rather than the dog because the dog has no choices in that. You know what I'm saying? Whatever they do. So, while I'm back here on my bus, y'all make sure y'all on the way back, y'all, we got to make sure we got to pick up J-Bo. You know, I dropped him off, him and his little dog. I dropped J-Bo off, man, him and his little dog, man, and he ain't let me let it, he won't leave that alone. So on the way back, y'all, we're going to have to pick up J-Bo and his little dog. Now, look, J-Bo, I'm going to put you right there behind the driver's seat, man. You're going to be at the front of the bus. See, you got that legendary badge on now, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, and you deserve the place. I'm going to put you, man, right there where you can talk about it, right there. I gotta stay on the road and drive now. I can't be looking all back at you, but at least I got you right there, back there behind me, man. You got all my attention because you got my ear. Because you can talk to me any day. But you makes me laugh, man. You make me laugh. You had me rolling on your little short, man. You had me rolling, man.
Sporting Dog Archive.
Oh, Sporting Dog Archive, put that out there. Yeah, Sporting Dog Archive, that was a good one, man. That one had me rolling. The man said I even had the Going Hard t-shirt on. he put me and my dog out. Oh man, look here, man. That's a guy, once you got to know him, and y'all might hate this, but I got to give it to Dougie. I got to give it to Dougie. Dougie brought a new style to the game, and it brought a whole lot of guys out there you wouldn't even know about. Look, don't forget Mr. Green. You can't forget Mr. Green. You can't forget J-Bo. And there was another guy. And I cannot remember his name. But there was another one. We don't hear much from him anymore. But there was another guy who was pretty famous back then that we hardly ever talk about, but he was on Dougie's show. You know, and I just cannot remember his name.
You used to always talk to him too.
I know I think it started with an S or something. But yeah, he was a pretty famous dog man too. Back then. That a lot of people, you know, you wouldn't know, but when you start listening to them talk, it's that area that they're in. You gotta really be in the game really to understand those pocket areas that these guys came out of, that they were already legendary in these areas. When you listen to their story, you know exactly what they're talking about and who they are. You know, remember, you got legends coming out of all parts. And it's how they come out. You know, I have not yet ran across a self-proclaimed legendary dog man except Chico Lopez. You know, you say it enough, people start believing what you're saying, and then you get them to saying it too. You know, you come in, you know, patronizing your legendary status before anybody proclaimed it. Everybody followed your, you know, your words. So, you know, proclamation to me. People like J-Bo, never looking for it. Probably caught it unexpectedly, just based on what he was doing, just being J-Bo, doing what he do. And you know, and the thing about it is, I heard, like he said, you know, we gave up so much. You know, listening to him talking, I felt like I was in his shoes. Because when he said something about, you know, we put the dogs before the family, like the dogs was like crack. You know what I'm saying? He right. You know, it made me think like, man, you know, he is making some serious shit sense too now. Because he was right. It was a bug. No, I think, you know, even when, you know, I look back and think about it on J-Bo's standpoint, the way he was putting it out there, I can understand exactly what he was saying when he was saying, you know, with all the shit that I go through over these dogs, man. And I fight so hard for my dogs. You know what I'm saying? Something is wrong with me. I'm like J-Bo. You know, I feel that. Because it's the truth. Maybe I was addicted to these damn dogs. That I would risk my freedom, risk my family. To do some dumb shit. So stuck on doing dumb shit. It really is dumb shit, y'all. But it's a whole category called the American Pit Bull Dog Game. And that American Pit Bull Dog Game, man, to many people is dumb shit. You know, the people that's in that bubble, we don't know that yet. You have to step outside, walk away, literally walk away, and then go stand outside with everybody else before you realize, you know, And you know how many relationships I ended up losing because of these dogs? And the trouble, and the money, and the time. And for what? Yet we fuss at PBK when he done went from that to this.
Want to give a special shout out to my man 6143 coming in with a 10-piece. He said Dr. Shelby was
That's
on
it.
Pro Show.
That's who I'm talking about. You're right, baby. That's right, baby. It didn't cost you $10 to do it, but you sure got my attention on that one. You are correct. Dr. Shelby. That's right. Yep, that's right. He was the other man that Pro brought on, who is legendary. That is true. So that's J-Bo, Dr. Shelby, and then Mr. Green. And don't forget me. You know, James Pope, Mile, Stone City. You didn't have some good ones. Triple M, Royal Bull. He had some good ones on the show, though. You know, so those guys are legends. And they were legends long before they made it to a podcast. I'm just thankful that the podcast was able to let everybody else see, you know, what they thought was gone. And deserve that right to be called legends, not self-proclaimed. This in their stories alone, they were legends. Period. Because they did put in the work. You know, and again, I look back at that shit now and really now I'm getting old, I'm sick, I'm still messing with my dogs, I'm dealing with Malinois, but it's the same thing. You know, it's like a disease. I just need them in my life. You know, and they got to be doing some aggressive shit. Now I'm not putting them on dogs. I'm putting them on people. You know, it's like, you know, and I'm feeding something. And whatever that something is, at least I am trying to behave. At least I found my way to realize, hey, you know, guys who go out there, you know, like, you know, when you have people smoking crack and shit, you know, and then you got a lot of people smoking crack, and then you got a real whole lot of people smoking crack, you know, that's how the dog game is. You know, we all was crackheads over the dogs. Can't say it was right. Smoking wasn't right, and us doing dogs wasn't right. We all had an illness. We all had an illness. That's what it is. You know you got to have an illness when you drop dead in the box. Come on. When you go dropping dead in the box, you got a illness. Okay? When you go down, you go to your gravestone, you know what I'm saying? And you know they got you down in there and they put this stone right where you buried. And it's got a bulldog on it. You know. Straight crackhead. Yes, we was. We was crackheads. Honorable though. Legendary crackheads. I mean, it was a disease. There's something in doing that. It got to be. I mean, it really has to be something in that, because we talking about 1800s all the way to 2025, and we still smoking. We still smoking. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. It's got to be something. You know, it got to be. Because a lot of us don't see the wrong. Then, I see the wrong now because I done stepped outside of the box, like where everybody else is standing, and I'm looking in, you know, and when I say PBK because he's another eye opener. You know, 1 minute you might not have been in the game to the level that we all played in to be in a legendary status or any kind of status to hold it. But look, it doesn't matter. He was smoking just like us. He had bulldogs and he was hungry. Bottom line, he had to step outside of that and stand out here where everybody else is. Probably was standing next to me when you realized it, but he just realized it a little quicker than me. Because I'm a little stubborn. But he's right. J-Bo was right. We gave up so much. Put so much on the line, just like any smoker. For the love of what? Doing something stupid. There's no way you're going to tell me that doing dogs wasn't stupid now. No, don't go get mad at me when I say that, because, listen, I'm calling myself stupid. I'm not calling y'all stupid. I'm calling me stupid because I'm sitting on the outside looking in, and I'm looking at the relationships and the families and everything else I put behind my dogs. That must have been some good shit that I was smoking, because I didn't see no wrong in what I was doing, or I wouldn't have put so much effort into it. What was I feeding? You know what I'm saying? What was I feeding? I mean, look at me now. You know, I'm on a podcast. Everybody loves us. You know, I mean, and I love y'all. But let's get some reality check going on here now. Let's get some real reality check. The twin say it's like a smoker. Listen to him. Because twin breaking it down. He's saying that he was in that box. And then when he finally stepped away, and it took people like J-Bo and PBK and a lot of other part of my friends. Pat Bill. Good example. These guys, when you hear them saying it, they really made me think. Because me, I fight for my dogs to the courts. Whatever you bring it, I'm coming, because y'all not going to do this. But the whole time I'm thinking, why is you like to fight? That's what it is. I'm a Marine, and I think they did something in my head that really make me subjectable to competition, competing. My dogs are trained for protection. I breed my Malinois for the purpose of protection. I'm still breeding for gameness. I'm still breeding for ability. Still breeding for bite. Aggression. You know, I'm still smoking crack. I'm still smoking. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be understood what I'm trying to tell y'all. Because see, even now with all this going on, it's these little things that I don't get a chance to go to these shows or nothing, but I'm always around Mike. So Mike is always popping in and playing things when I'm around where I get a chance to listen. I didn't drop in. Mike might be checking on everybody. So they listening. I'm listening. And evidently the Lord put me in a place, man, that lately, he been saying that an awful damn lot to me. Boy, you sick and you still doing it. Still doing it. I haven't got a chance to stand out there on the outside and mingle with all the people on the outside to really get a feel. I'm only catching bits and people because I'm still in here smoking. But there's a crack in there. There is a crack in there. Because for the first time in a very long time, I've asked myself, could I live without that? What would my life be without no dogs? The thing that I love more than anything is my dogs. Because I lost everything else pertaining to what I'm trying to have with them, I can't keep. But they still there. But how will life be for me without them? I'm so used to getting up, taking care of them, being there for them, providing. You know what I'm saying, y'all? And for what? Why am I doing all this? For aggression. Everything was pertaining to aggression. Soldiers. That's what they are. I think something got turned on with my growing up into the streets and then getting that Marine Corps manipulation thing getting screwed into our head. You know what I'm saying? It took up some space up in there, man. I think it took up some space. And I'm starting to see clear. Not all the way, but I'm seeing cracks. I hear the way Mike and Samurai and all these guys is doing these new things. And I'm like J-Bo on the real tip. I'm a confessed smoker. So y'all can talk about me all you want. I don't give a damn. You take your little party machine and y'all ain't smoking like me. I don't give a damn about y'all party. I'm a smoker. Y'all do y'all. I'm gonna still be smoking. I get 2 cents about what y'all trying to do with the dog game. Because I'm back there in the back, lost. See the future, but I'm too stuck back here where it's safe for me to be back here to say this shit to y'all. You know what I'm saying? If somebody had told me what I'm hearing now back then, you probably got cussed out. Yeah. I've been asking you why you feeding that garbage. I know I'm feeding mine, but you tell me why you feeding yours. And would have felt right about saying it. Trying to do it the right way. Well, I don't, that's your way, baby. I'm all with you. On your way, but you over here in my way. But being in my way, I'm going to talk about you. You take all that curry ass shit and do that. I ain't on that. You know what I'm saying? I ain't breeding that. I ain't trying to sell that. I ain't trying to go with that. You know what I mean? But that's just me. Not speaking of anybody else. That's just me. I hear guys talking about the old dogs and how they washed up and all. Well, shit, guess what? At least we got something to wash. What the hell y'all washing? Y'all ain't got shit to be washing, to be washed up. Nothing. So just taking it from me back here on the bus, looking out there at y'all, but not for once, I'm standing outside with everybody else. Still got that naive smoking in me, because I'm standing out here with you don't mean I ain't smoking no more. It just means, I'm not in rehab. So I'm standing outside amongst all the real people and what y'all see looking in at us. Trying to make a better way. That's why we still got thugs and gangs on the streets. Some of us just can't see. You come to us, we call you weak. You don't want to hear that shit. That's what it is. But I think right now in the time of my life, I got a crack in there. I'm starting to really hear them. I'm starting to really get into that crowd and understand what it looked like from the outside looking in and know I had a problem. I think we all had a problem. All these great dog men, all these great dogs. That's why America stopped trying to let us just keep it a misdemeanor. Now they done went from misdemeanor to a damn federal charge. We worse than the crackheads in the real world. Because at least they still going to jails catching felonies for smoking. Someone can get to rehab, they can get out. A smoker, I just can't stop from smoking. You heard me stories y'all heard like that. So we're in a worse position than the crackheads, the real smokers. Because we getting fed cases. So with me on the bus back then, and I'm looking up here at the guys now that's taking worse chances than me. And I got the egg being cracked, and I'm realizing something must be wrong with me for loving these dogs like this. This is not normal, because I'm standing out here with all these other people, and I'm standing out there with them, and as I'm looking in that direction where I was, it don't look normal from out here. I know y'all tripping tonight. I know y'all like, what happened to Mo? Mo didn't put Money Mike's shirt on today. But because we have these guys out here with these podcasts trying to lead y'all in a direction, man. And it's a good direction. And if y'all hear me, man, listen to me and listen to me clearly. It is a problem. To us, it's honor and competing, and we just stuck in this shell, but we don't let the outside in. That's why we're in the dark. It's a world of its own. Take time out and stop beating up as they beat up on us, because how many people beat up on smokers and shit? They always talking about the smokers. We all have a problem.
Big shout out to my man, Mr. Vernon Starr in the house. Vernon said, man, you got a fever. It's called a fever.
It's a fever. Okay. It's a hot ass fever. It sure is. And this watching these guys out here, you know, moving towards the future. And at the same time, we're sitting back, scared to walk down the streets with breaking sticks, scared to have treadmills in our yards, scared to even have a book with dog fighting in it. Scared to talk about a champion dog. I mean, when you really look at it, it's like there's a problem there. And where's the problem at? It's not on the outside where I'm standing right now. Because when I leave that outside, y'all know where I'm going to walk back to. Y'all know I'm going to be out there with them. But y'all can guarantee when I walk away, where am I going? Until I figure it out. And see, I'm starting to figure it out. I'm starting to figure it out because I don't want to see no dog man, us competitors, us smokers, lose your family like so many of us have. Lost time for going to prison like so many of us have. You know? Doing something that we love. That you, by everybody else, it's against the law and it's wrong. But we didn't care. Took the chances like they've been doing ever since the 1800s. And what our success was only successful in a dark world. Yes, we make history, but it's a dark history. You know what I'm saying? So I hear you, J-Bo. I hear you, Samurai. I hear you, PBK. I hear you, Archives. Big Hill. My new dude, my man of the Big Scratch. Was it Big Scratch? Big Scratch? Yeah. You know, we talk about the history. When we talk about these dogs, we name them and we look at these pedigrees. But y'all, look at this. Are y'all really paying attention? I mean, really? When we stand on the outside looking at us inside, there's a problem. It's a problem that's been around as long as crack, as long as dope. We have a addiction. And we love our addiction. Sooner or later, it comes to an end. Either you're going to die from your addiction, or you're going to go to jail for your addiction. But the whole time, we've been losing shit. Even when we was gaining popularity in legendary statuses in a dark world. You know what I'm saying? One day, I hope one day that I can wake up in the morning without having to worry about getting up and feeding a dog. I will leave and go to another city if I can't have a dog. But why do I want one? When I know what my addiction is. There's my hope. that I can wake up without one? Am I going to have cold flashes? I'm going to be getting the EBGBs and shit because I'm alone? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know how you got to go cold turkey? Where did this violence in me, where does it go if I can't put it in a dog? What happens to it? How do you maintain that bear? You know? So shout out to y'all guys. Took me a minute. You know, I still love the history. I still feel like it wasn't nothing wrong with what I was doing. I was in my own space and I was doing my own thing. You know, ain't that how most crackheads tell you their story when they, I was smoking. I don't give a damn what people say about me. So I was enjoying that shit, okay? Well, I was enjoying my shit too. Like so many other great dog men were doing and have done. You know, I guess it's time. Unless a new drug come out, you know what I'm saying? That we ain't got to worry about going to jail, you know, make it less of a narcotic. You know, could I get the same hit off of it running up a wall on a treadmill as I was getting scratching the wind? Okay, I rather not even fuck with none of it because I don't think I can. It'll lead me back to the real shit. It's best to walk away and stay away. You know, don't feed it. Because for us, it would not be the same. For us true players, those get with it's, you know what I'm saying? It'd be best to just go through the cold fever, you know what I'm saying, of getting over it. You know, having another life outside of the dog, something I've never had. No. I know y'all, I got to hear somebody saying something out there, Mike. I know y'all understand where I'm coming from, right? And I'm going to tell you, that's why J-Bo was getting back on the bus, him and his little dog. I'm going to go back on the way home. I'm going to go pick him up. Because even though he was standing out there on the curb where I left his ass, you know, he was still talking about that shit, okay? And the word got back to me. And I forgot about my man J-Bo. I got to go back and pick him up. And I got a seat waiting right there for him, right behind the driver's seat where he can talk to me all he wants. He got all ears, both sides. You know, because I enjoy listening to you. And you cracked my egg. And it really cracked it. And I just gave you a little bit to work with this crackhead shit. Because as you was telling me, man, I was like, you know, on that bus. You know, back on the bus, we turn into anything, right? Why I'm on the bus back here and I'm feeling like I'm a crackhead? You know, I went right there. I didn't go anywhere else. I went right to the crackhead game. Because, you know, once you smoking, what do you do every day? You get out there to hustle and get that smoke. Well, ain't that what we was doing every day, feeding these damn dogs and cleaning up dog shit and, you know, and all this? And what's wrong with us? Waiting on the next moment to get him on? Cracked that shell, man. A little light got in and burnt me. I was like a vampire when it hit me. You know what I'm saying? It was like, You know how you see the shit on TV where the light come beaming down on you and shit. Why me? Why want to come talk to me? You know, y'all words is getting through to me because I am sick. You know, I really do see what's coming through. You know, a life without dogs. Do you know what you would do, twin? Do you really know what your life would be like to wake up and not have to go take care of a dog for real? What would you do with yourself? How you gonna feed that competitive hunger of aggression? You might get a woman this time in your dying days that you got left, and you might find one that's gonna fall in love with you and really fall in love with you because she's not competing with the dogs. She's got your time, quality time. She don't have to worry about the door getting knocked down or something happening. You know, gave me something to think about. You know, especially in them final days where, you know, I don't have 15 years to go. You know, and anything that I run into is going to be short-lived. But maybe I get that chance in my life to really get a chance to see. You know, probably going to make somebody very happy.
You ain't got there yet.
But I ain't got there yet. And let me just tell you, I still got that crack pipe in my pocket. Okay, I ain't fixed yet. I'm just wishing and hoping with big dreams. And until then, I'm going to keep jumping on the bus, going way over there where it's safe to talk about this shit and feed my hunger. And keep on talking about their ass. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's when I'm going to be an advocate. I used to be a smoker. And we were smoking some good stuff. Great things going down back then. Yeah, I would love to continue talking about it. Want to talk about it. But I'm still living the life of taking care of dogs, even if I'm not doing anything else. I'm still dealing with aggressive dogs. Things that I love training my dogs to do is protect and be willing to fight to the end. Got to be game. So they get pressed full court. Full court.
Big shout out to my man Skip Bell. He said, I don't want rehabilitation,
Okay, hey baby, look.
As the dogs.
Okay, hey man, look. I ain't knocking you, baby boy. Look, we on the bus. And back here on the bus, we can say this shit because we're safe back here. We're not talking about the now. We don't need no rehabilitation because we already ruined. You know, what's the worst thing you can do when you're a smoker is come down. You want to stay high because you hate coming down. You know what I'm saying? We don't need rehabilitation, fellas. No, we don't need rehab. That's not what we need. This is what we need right here, right now. What I'm doing here, right now. I'm sitting here talking to you guys. Since the 1800s, when they started bringing that shit over into the United States, when nobody rehabbing no dog fighter then. Don't think I'm trying to rehab none of y'all now. But I must say, that crack opened up a different light for me. And when I look at me, speaking for me, I see something wrong with me. Legendary or not, I'm still legendary in a dark place. J-Bo is still legendary in a dark place. Maurice Carver is legendary in a dark place. Earl Tudor's legendary in a dark place. They're all legendary in a dark place. All these great dogs are legendary stories. That's right. I mean, we see it every day on the TV. You know, 50 is showing you big time. Making cash money out here, putting dope dealer movies out. You know? Just imagine if we could get out and put us a great dogfight movie out about Earl Tudor and James Crenshaw and the history of the dog game, a whole damn series. And had Peter and everybody just freaking the hell out. But you got them true bulldoggers and them wannabe bulldoggers. We don't want to watch that show. They're going to want to watch that show. You're going to have everybody screaming foul. But shit, look. All we need is enough people. They can put Trump in the White House again. Hey, shoot, we can make some money. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody got different strokes for different folks. And I believe if, like these podcasts, it's out here touching those things, man. Whether you're doing it the right way or the wrong way of the past, we're taking people back in our time for entertainment, historical purposes, all for the purpose of entertaining only type shit. And literally telling you our stories. You know, they're putting them in books. The book that I will put out, man, it will have everybody in the book. This wouldn't be about me. It'd be about everybody. I mean, I would love to see Fido playing Indian Bolio in the movie. You know, who we get to play Floyd Boudreaux. And when did the black folks start popping up? You know, early in, we got to talk about them yards that they was like, imagine in the movie we want somebody walking over there to that junkyard and getting Diabo. Now let's we writing the script. Now how back then was he able to go over there and get the dog? Did it go in there and say, hey, yo boy, they was calling us boy back then. You know what I'm saying? I'll buy that dog from you. Or did he walk in there and say, boy, that ain't no junkyard dog, it's my dog. You know what I mean? Let's keep it real. But I think it'll make a damn good movie. See, they did Roots like that. Boy, name went from, Kunta Kinte to Nigga Toby. Okay? And it changes up. You know what I'm saying? I think it would make a good movie. But you best believe we would get backlash. We would get backlash, but I know it would make a great movie. On some of the most, the gameness. Not just the little part of the dog fighting. You don't have to literally be fighting dogs to really get it off. You know what I'm saying? It's just a story in itself. A couple of dog growls and rah, 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 and a couple of little movie flashes and shit. You know how they do it on TV. You know what I'm saying? And we got Jeep and Homer there looking like they laying in the cave, sleep for about an hour. And just imagine the Jeep and Homer thing. Dogs laid there down the hour. You know what I'm saying? That's a whole show right there. What we doing while they laying there? We out smoking, we out there drinking, peeking in. Man, they dogs still laying down there. Man, I don't know why they don't just pick them damn dogs up. That's what be going on. Shit, I went 3 hours, and I'm gonna tell you what they was doing. They was going outside smoking shit. Mosquitoes was the rubbery. Hey, look, y'all can touch your dog. Just get the mosquitoes off. They didn't know they got mosquitoes. I mean, these is big ill mosquitoes. Man, keep the mosquitoes off your dogs while they're there. It got down to that. Now, just imagine the people were just standing there. They probably ran out to the car, sat in the car, got to smoking some joints and all kind of shit, you know, because it was like drawn out. These dogs still going, this shit ain't over yet. Yeah. But the two warriors inside and them two captains just handling them two warriors, we never left the battlefield. That's the focus. That would be the main focus of that show. While everybody else is doing whatever. The battle's still going on in there. We couldn't walk out. And our warriors put everything they had into that. But it can only be but one. And just so, you gotta say it again. I guess I was lucky. You know what I'm saying? But that's a whole historical wonder world out there, these kind of stories. You don't have to be Floyd Boudreaux. You don't have to be Earl Tudor. You don't have to be Mama. You don't have to be like them as their own guys in their own rank and ways. They made history, not trying to make history. Abrahams, Frank Bunt, Sam Lambier, James Powell, James Pope, Attsboro, all these great dog men. So many, I mean, I'll still be sitting here naming them to 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. They all paved their own way. And I don't think none of them was paving it to be legendary. But they all had a problem.
Victor didn't sound like he was trying to be legendary.
Victor was coming out hindsight. You know, he's looking into a future like a business plan. Remember, when I bring the yard, I'm going to bring the yard about something I wrote back in 92. Well, I was down there saying the same thing. And then the next one, all of a sudden, you see yellow popping up in my conversation when I was in the beginning talking about Eli dogs. I then went from Bully Son to Jeep to Yellow, Red Boy. Now, I done met these two warriors, Yellow Buck and Mayday, the two camps. I know both the generals. And I'm standing there in the middle. And I'm telling myself, I love both dogs. I wonder what it would look like because I'm seeing the way they're bred. I'm sounding like Victor. I hope one day I'll be able to take and breed these dogs to each one of them and then take them and put them together. I would love to have been able to do that with Red Ace. Took Red Ace and bred to Mayday and then took Red Ace and bred to Yellow Buck. What? It would have been a great thing to do. Because in my story, that's what I was trying to do, was it not? Yeah, I was going to bring Red Ace to Mayday, Red Ace to Yellow Buck. I was going to take them two puppies there and breed them together. While they sitting over there feuding, I'm going to sit over here because I think there's something great there. And I wrote about it and said it. It didn't work out with Red Ace, but it didn't stop me from doing it. Nope, it didn't stop me from doing it. I took Brat's brother and did it. Yep. Took his daughter, took old little Buck, put them two together. Still did what I said I was gonna do. But it's all in the game, man. And then when you think about all this stuff that I'm talking about, look, we still talking about in the dark side. We're still talking about in the crack house where they smoking. You know, and we're back here on the bus where it was real smoky too. But it's entertainment to talk about now. Can't change what's back there. But it's funny to hear. I think J-Bo, when he cracked it with a laugh. You know, because J-Bo, I used to feel the same way, man. I swear I did. I didn't care what nobody else did with their dog. I don't care. And I dare you to be acting like you want to talk crazy to me, because I'll be ready to put one on your ass. Let's do this. And you know how that be. These great kennels did not get there by standing there holding their arms like this, like they on top of the world. It just don't work that way. You're not gonna get nowhere that way. No, these guys had hands down. Competition was like the smoke. That's competition. You know, that's sucking up the wind. Can't have nobody over there, man. You can't smoke. You need somebody over there to smoke. The exhale is the wind. Every once in a while, you got to cough to a loss. But for those great ones, it didn't cost a lot. They didn't cough a lot. And what Victor did was damn near some shit that I would have said that Earl Tudor and Maurice Carver did. Because we damn near ran all 20 dogs off of Mayday.
Tell them which ones they did miss.
I did, okay. Let me tell you the ones that I didn't hear. I didn't hear Annabelle. I didn't hear Little Mayday. Who was the other one? Hannah. Hannah wasn't on there. So that's Little Mayday, Annabelle, Hannah. Okay, somebody already said Monster. Monster did show up. And there was a female that they missed. They said Bay May, they said Chanel. Let's see. There's one more out there. I know we had 5. I had 5 on the top block. With the 16 that y'all had, that was be 21. 21 that we literally could name, and did not one of them come off of Victor's work. And that means what none of these champions are grand champions. Campaign by Southern Kennels. Not one. Not one. A lot of them came from Victor, like he said he was going to do. He said he was going to do it, and he told you how he was going to do it. So everybody who wants to, hate on Victor and Mayday, it's like you got the prettiest girl in the room. You know what I'm saying? You're going to always have a bunch of girls looking at her, whispering about her. And all she had to do was just stand there. So you know what that means. You know where I'm going with that. I shouldn't even have to point it out. That just showed that you know what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to leave it right there. All she got to do is just stand there and be pretty. If you look around the room, you're going to see a whole lot of whispers. Tucking up under their man. You know what I'm saying? And that's what Victor was like. He was that pretty woman in the room. He didn't have to go out there no more. He did his part. He did his part with Mayday, Choice, and Dragon Lady. And Dolly. Him being lucky enough to acquire Dolly. And the Mayday dogs. It made it happen. You know? Okay, Mike. What time is it?
It's that time, bro.
It's 12 o'clock. Hey, guys, I hope y'all really felt me on this conversation. Big shout out to PBK. Big shout out to Samurai. Big shout out to my people's J-Bo. Big shout out to, what's my man's name? My Hill? What's his name? Big Hill? That's his name, Big Hill? Oh, yeah, he's another one. He's J-Bo too to me. Oh, I enjoy listening. See, I don't know none of you guys. Only reason I'll pick up because I'll be around Mike and, you know, he's always listening, so I'm listening with him, you know, and I be enjoying it because y'all be saying some dead on point shit, you know. Y'all understand when I'm not in front of this screen, I'm living in a different world. You know, this is a world I run into on Tuesdays and Fridays. That's why I'm always late trying to get in here. And hopefully, you know, you guys keep me here, you know, because, you know, with the light kind of cracking in and I'm starting to feel, you know, what's really going on and really feeling for y'all because I don't, you know, I had to come to realization about myself. I can't speak for everybody else. You know what I'm saying? And I know how y'all feel. So, you know, I ain't putting none of my peoples down. I ain't putting none of my smokers down because we smoke. We can accept that. It's just the way it is. But then there's a time, you know, that I'm standing up for you smokers and telling you, man, at my time in my life and my age, I'm starting to wonder, man. I didn't already realize I got a problem. I'm just trying to figure out how do I deal with it. Could I live a life without dogs? Could I really live my life without a dog, get another woman before I leave this world and really make her happy without the interference of her having to deal with me and dogs? Where she could have me all to herself. I wonder what kind of guy I would be to her. You know, I hope I don't turn into no husband beater, you know, with all this violence I've been around all these years. You know, she show a little competition, me, I mean ready to throw her in the headlight and flip her and shit. You know, ain't nobody around, you know, I don't know where's this shit gonna go. You know, I don't know. As you know, you got a problem. You know, I say it like that. Maybe she can wind all that down and fix it. What little time I have left in my life. But hey, I wanted to join that crew of guys out there that are always, you know, I want y'all to know that I hear y'all too. You can't go shoving around us old folks because we paved y'all way. You know, when you do that, you look like the people whispering around the room about the pretty girl because you're not as pretty as she is. Okay? So behave when you do that because that's what it looks like. You cannot change what we did in the past to make yourself look better. You only look like a fool. So find a better way of fixing that part to the people out here that really got a problem. And you might get a little, you know, understanding between the two parties. You know what I'm saying? I think that's where the disconnection's coming in at. You know what I'm saying? So I give hats off to all y'all and everybody out there that's trying to do that. Just remember, I'm back here on the bus going 20, 30 years, damn near 40 years back there, and I'm standing up there where I'm at, looking way up there at y'all. But as I look at all the shit that I gotta pass to get to y'all. I got a lot of shit to pass, a lot of history, a lot of greatness. And as I get that way, guess what I see coming forward? I'm like that Indian who sits over to America after they took my land and now they shitting all over it. And I'm feeling sad. That's how I feel about the dog.
Somebody, I think, Johnny Rocket said, "Twin, we went from crying Indians to smoking crack."
That's it. We went to crying and smoking crack. Yes, you know me, baby. You know I love y'all, man, cause y'all be getting me, okay? Y'all make me think about shit because I just do shit on the fly. I do. I walk in here today and I'm thinking about everything that I've been hearing, and and then I'm hearing about Mike and Victor in this greatness, and I'm looking like, y'all, do y'all know how crazy this shit sounded to me today? Watching Victor's story and listening to Victor's story, and even knowing that Victor, even back then, he knew my journey with Mayday long before Brack came along. See, I was already in long before Brack came along. I was already in with Stone City and Victor. So I listen to these stories and be like, now it's like, I'm a part of that history. I know them. I know there's so many of them I know, but I just for the first time realized it's all dark history. We had night vision, people. Don't ever forget that. It's like that smoker who don't like smoking around a lot of people because they beggars. It's like how we are. In today's world, it's wise to be that way, but the game is the game, and we choose to play. And I'm going to leave it right there, and that's how I'm going to end the night. We choose to play. We choose to take the risk. And all the problems that came with that, and all the things that we may have lost, from good dogs to families, to lives, in a dark world. Shout out to us night riders. Stay safe. And I'll tell you what you do with your dog. So I ain't trying to tell you how to do it. I just want you to be safe.
Well, that summed up a whole damn week of talking bulldogs. Hey, look, big shout out to all my people out there and the new shows, the old shows. They can hear me. Big shout out to all my people out there in the Shark Tank. You don't see my little ticker running across the bottom right now. I'm trying to get in this new. I'm looking to revamp everything, but as y'all know, we're still going into. I think this might, on this. I'm just putting this out here. Instead of doing the membership thing, I think I'm gonna spend my time with this last couple months and we're gonna revamp everything that we're doing. It's not gonna happen overnight, but might slowly see a change, and then you might just instantly see a change. Again, I got to be in my headspace when I do this, and I want Mo to be in his headspace, because it's almost like him giving up all dogs, including this, and see what life was going to be like. Because remember, they put a toe tag on my brother. I think they said 3 to 5, and I think he's coming up on 3. You're coming up on 3. and he get to that 3, and then we're gonna be working on phone 5. But I think phone 5 that'll put us almost 67. So, I don't want to spend it, the rest of my motherfucking life, or his life, doing this. Nah. But it's funny to hear him say, because I wouldn't even know what it felt like to be without a dog. It's crazy to sound for me. Actually, I did go 1 year without no dogs. And it's my wife that wound up bringing that damn Maldoodle in the house. Little bitty. I mean,
look like what you call them, the space Star Wars.
Gosh, I was running Huawei. They were on Star Wars. Little furry little dogs. I mean, they cute with the little big eyes, but cute as hell. But even her, I turned her into a tag dog. Wife didn't like that shit at all. Because it's uncontrollable. Because she, you got to, she is a monster.
She thinks she gonna whoop a pit.
Yeah, she really thinks her confidence level is way up.
Yeah, she running anything. Yeah. She ain't playing either.
Nah, she ain't no punk about it. She can get hurt. I can turn her around and she's scratching back. I mean, seriously hurt, and still go back. So that's just that little fire in her little behind. But before having her around, and to see the first thing back at my door is something I never had outside of, the Cocker Spaniels used, and they were still, Mo had bred them. They were still, our bred dogs. But thing was,
that was for the wife.
That was the wife bringing the dog back in the house because now I ain't no kids. And I guess I wasn't enough, so that's what she chose to bring back through. Then my daughter was supposed to be my daughter's dog, and Sponio was supposed to be here for a couple days and wound up spending her whole life here. So you already know what I did. If you can have a dog, and then I'm going to give me one. I'm going to bring me one of them dogs up here. bring me one of them dogs up here. Okay, now I got one. Well, where I can feel better. See how that little thing, it just goes on and on. But for him, he don't know what it is to never be without. And we've been having this talk because, I've been really wanting to see this thing wind down. Because I got other things that I think if I'm going to spend some time, I got things I need to do as far as business-wise that, it'll help this, but it'll also help get away from what we're doing. But for the ride we took with y'all, it was one of the best, things we could have ever done, first and foremost. 3 years in, okay, so what? We only do Tuesdays and Fridays. But you think about, we just crossing over 300 videos. And I see people who are 5 and 8 and 900. I kind of take my hat off to people like that because y'all actually do have the time to do that. And even though we do 2 days, I know what it takes to do that many videos. If that's all we had to do, I think we could, come up with, content because we would be outside of this office. We would be out there in the yard. Y'all would be up there watching us raise a whole yard of damn bulldogs. Things would be so much different. That's why I can be satisfied with 2 days a week instead of trying to make 4 or 5 days a week. 4 or 5 days a week, and we had a bunch of bulldogs, we would have content every day. You probably would know everything on the yard. But that's a whole new story. So understand where we're coming from. All we're trying to do is give it to you, from the real side of things, and know that one day, y'all can be the next victor, the next Boudreaux. I mean, there's always time for the next. History has always gave us the next. So we don't doubt that. We're not that is at no point something that we doubt. But we encourage y'all to think, to believe in yourself. Don't hate on the past because you don't know what your future gonna look like. And then don't be the one that's doing the hating and ain't got nothing to contribute to the future. Because regardless, bullshit gonna follow you. If you're a bullshitter, bullshit, usually follows you throughout your life to the point to where people smell your shit before you even get there. It's just knowing that you're gonna be there. They full of shit type of. You know what I'm saying? I want you to have that same mentality that a lot of the greats had, and they all had those things in common. And I'm not even looking at us as great. We always tell you, we copycatted off the last person. We don't make no secrets about how we, copied off the last person. Made it a point to. Because that's what mattered for us. That's what mattered for a lot of them. So, keeping that thought in mind, we don't want y'all to think that we hating on anybody, because this ain't have nothing to do with hate. Just has something to do with, until you get, think about when we tell y'all everybody has been in at a certain point in this game. We all have our place. We're all going to go through the same thing. That's generally what the conversation was basically about, to clear up the bullshit, because, like I said, the basement been the basement for years. So let's quit making excuses for the basement. There's no excuses. We have no excuses. We're just going to take it for what it is, and we're going to ride with it. But we're not going to be responsible for your future, because nobody was responsible for our future but us. You heard Victor? He only told you what he felt like in his plan, what it was going to look like. Imagine if you had the chance to have an interview with Victor Arquette in the now and talk about that interview. I think he'd be very happy with himself and get a chance to hear it come out the man's mouth, just how great it feels to have a legendary dog. Just want to hear how you feel about, you said it, and now that you did it, and your dogs are ever able to win in other people's hands. See, that's where we got our glory from. That's where we got our happiness from. Was the fact that not only could we whip your ass, our dogs could be in anybody, the right people's hands, and beat your ass. That right there, it just adds fuel to the fire. You know what I mean? As far as competition, knowing that you was right. You was right in what you was doing. So don't give up on what you're doing or how you do it. Again, just don't have nothing to do with the back and forth. It has something to do with the dog, man. Because one thing we all had in common, we all had a dog. That's for starters. And we all had a dream or a wish or a purpose of why we had that dog. Now it's up to you to tell us what the future looks like by making a future. And we'll understand what it's like once it's done, because then you'll have the history to show for it. That's all. And we've been pushing that for the last couple of shows simply because it's needed. So y'all do me a favor before we get up out of here. I know it's a Friday night and everything. I ain't trying to be here all night, but I need you to show me some love you know. And don't forget to hit that like button and that subscribe button if you haven't already done. So we are coming up on 3,200 subscribers. We are 4 subscribers away from 3,200. You know, for us, don't sound like a lot compared to everybody else. But for us, we still always appreciate the next milestone. So help us get there.
We're talking about the views. You think we'll make $1 million before we close out?
I think once I redo this, once I revamped everything, I'm guaranteeing we're gonna make $1 million. I'm pretty sure we're gonna make $1 million. And 1 million views to go out on, you know, some people get 1 million in a week or something. But this week, this is a dog channel. So I don't expect to do no more than what the community gives us. But in the same token, there's so much the community is lacking that could be so much better. But who am I to say what better looks like? Well, I'm going to show you because I'm going to try to do better by making changes. So that's how I can tell you. Because this is just good. This can be better if I put in worth the time. And I believe that. So, y'all show me some love by first helping me get to that 3,200. If you see this video and you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Only 4 away. Next thing y'all can do, people in the Shark Tank, I see y'all over there showing that love already because y'all know what's coming. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Muscles, muscles, muscles. Now give your damn self some roses. Roses. You need them damn roses. Show yourself some damn love. Because I love you, man. Let me give me my big shout outs over here to Big J Rock.
All day.
J Rock 735 coming in with a 10-piece showing that major love. See, look, man.
Thanks for the contributions, everybody.
Man, I'm gonna tell y'all this, man, and you know, and please understand that I wouldn't care if it was 99 cents. I'm gonna show you the same amount of love because it's not the amount that matters, gentlemen. I'm gonna tell you again, it's not the amount. It's the fact that you found it in yourself to do something and supported this channel. That goes a long way with us. Actually, it should go a long way with any content creator here on YouTube that you support. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not the fact that YouTube pays us anything. You know, if we were to have a bunch of controversy and always got a bunch of bullshit going on, we'd probably be rich. If I was just get on here and just get straight bummed, just straight wild with it, I know we would get to $1 million. But see, I ain't trying to do it that way. You know what I'm saying? So appreciate what we're trying to do and then give yourself a pat on the back because this community would be nothing without people like y'all. Shark Tank, represent. Because again,
Backstreet, represent.
Backstreet. Y'all know what time it is. To all my visionaries with the, you know what I'm talking about.
Love you guys.
Love you guys, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep your head down, baby, and stay safe. Because who am I to knock anybody what they do with their dog?
That's right.
Hands off to that one.
Me too.
Hey, but look, man, we'll be back here Tuesday. But until then, man, y'all enjoy the weekend. And, you know how our motto is. Regardless of what you're going through, how you're going through it, don't worry about what the next man do. Just always worry about what you need to do and concentrate on that. I'm telling you,
Times get rough. Shit get weak. Look here, man. You know what the deal is.
You already know.
It's legendary. Legendary.
Legendary. You know, not everybody can do it though.
Nah. That's the sport.
That's where the sport come at. It's just a matter of which one you trying to be. What you got in you? Can you?
Can you?
I mean, is it in you?
Do you got it?
Do you got the? Were you always?
Do you got enough in there where you can always?
I mean, really? You need to always scratch the wind. Everybody ain't got that.
It takes a real special note to play,
Look,
baby.
man, that game, this is something
It's
else,
a real special
man.
note to play.
And look, in order to know what it look like, you got to be able to be what it is.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? For real. Don't talk about it. You better be about it. Show, act like you know. S2W all day, baby.
It's for you, J-Bo.
Let me get you some music, man. I'll help you out.
Hey, guys, I really enjoy this game, man.
You know, nobody comes back with the...
I promise you, you won't never hear me have that conversation again. You know, it was called a awakening. I had an awakening moment. Okay, and now I'm awoke. You know, a little light is in. Let's give it time. Let's see what happens. In the meanwhile, I'm continue entertaining you. You're gonna keep on jumping on that yellow bus. And I'm gonna go back here where I know I can do that and be that. And whatever we choose to do back there, let's enjoy ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Let's be right. Let's be right. Till Tuesday, fellas. Rock it out.
Oh, shoot. Here we go.
I'm like my man. He said, I'm an addict, twin, man. I love you, bro, because I'm an addict with you. You know, there's a bunch of addicts out here. You know what's up. We the new jack. That's what it is. You got to hear me pumping good, Mike, but they ain't got to hear me, man.
Yeah! Yeah!
That's that mob shit. When you leave the house, you just start moving around. Then that roll out with that beat. Y'all know y'all be bumping. I know y'all be bumping. Those gangster ride. You know, straight up like that.